About 2 months ago, I switched over to using Resolve to edit my videos from Premiere Pro, and overall, I'm really liking it. However, there are a few issues that are really annoying me, and today I'm going to tell you about them. Let's get undone. Gerald Undone. He's crazy. What's happening, everybody? I'm Gerald Undone, and I can't fight this feeling anymore. So I've got a few issues listed here that I've been documenting over the last couple months that I want to tell you about, and hopefully one of three things will happen. One, if the issue isn't really an issue and I'm just doing something wrong, I hope that you'll let me know in the comments how to get around it so that I can speed up my edits, which will also hopefully serve purpose number 2, which is to help other people that will read those comments to make it easier for them to transition from Premiere Pro to Resolve like I did. But 3, if there is no solution and it's just a feature that's broken or missing, well then hopefully this will serve as a report or request to Blackmagic to resolve that issue in future releases. Alright, so the first issue I have is with audio. So something that I do often in Premiere Pro that I can't really do in Resolve in the same way is to retime my audio but not my video. This happens when you have an audio file that has audio drift but you want to sync it to a scratch track that doesn't. That might seem more complicated than it is, but here, let me show you. So here's a video track, and it has some audio on it. And this isn't really set up for talking head, but let's pretend that it is. So let's jack up the volume on this so that we can see it. Now, let's make a duplicate of this audio here, and let's pretend that the audio on track 2 is from an external recorder, and we're trying to sync it to the audio on the first one. But what if there was drift in the audio, and at the beginning here, it's all synced up, but when we get to the end, let's say it wasn't. In order to prove this, I'm gonna have to change the speed of the clip. So let's say that this audio was actually 95%. Now that's going to be pretty significant audio drift, but you can see here how this one and this one aren't synced up, where at the beginning they might still be synced up. In order to fix this drift in Premiere Pro, I would just use the rate stretch tool and then grab it and stretch it down this way until they lined up, but there is no rate stretch tool. For the video, you can right click and you can bring up your retime controls and you can adjust them that way by dragging up here, and you're basically retiming it like that. You also have the ability to type in the speed. Now you can still use the speed with the audio, but you have to know exactly how, so in this case I chose 95, but what if you needed to make it 99.99475, which is something that happens often when I record with a particular recorder. So there's no real way to get around that in this edit page, but there is now with Resolve 16, I believe it came out. If you go to Fairlight, you have the option to right click on this and choose elastic wave, and then I believe you can just bring up this thing here and then retime it that way, and I think that works. If you look along, yeah, it looks like it's synced all the way in. So there is a solution and it's not too big of a problem, but I wanted to show this once that people who are coming from Premiere Pro, that's how you do your rate stretching now, is in the Fairlight, you have to use right-click elastic wave, and it's only, I think, in the latest version. But I do kind of wish that that was just something that we could do here in the edit page. I like that they have all these different tabs and different pages to do things, but sometimes it's kind of slow to have to switch to different pages to do something as simple as why can't I right-click and choose retime here, or rate stretch or elastic wave, or whatever you want to call it, and then do it in here. Why do I have to go into Fairlight? Now, sticking with audio, another thing that bugs me is that, say that we wanted to change little audio volume amounts here. So let's put a little cut here, and let's say that from this clip to that clip, there was a huge jump in volume, and we wanted to kind of roll it off a little bit so that, sometimes we make a jump cut, person starts yelling all of a sudden. So there's obviously a way to do it right here, which is that you can press and hold Alt and then click, and that places like a little keyframe, and then you can place another one. And now if we wanted to say ramp the audio down here, this will work. But what I don't like about it is the increments in which it jumps. Now if we drag this over here and we'll set it to 0 dB, now watch what happens if I bring it down just the smallest amount. I'm moving just a minor amount on the mouse. It jumps to minus 3.4 dB and then again to 6.82, and it moves in those increments. That's too severe sometimes. Now, in case you're new and you don't realize this, you can get this more, thorough by clicking on the curve display here, and then now you can adjust this one a little bit more precise. So we can go, 12, 11, 10, so we get about, 3/4 of a dB now, which is fine, that's better. But this sort of fluid, smooth, small increment things, I don't understand why I have to expand the curves just to be able to do that. Why can't I have that same kind of fluidity in here? Why is it jumping large jumps every time? The only other way to get it to be more smooth is I have to really expand the audio track and make it take up a lot of the timeline, and then when we come in here, so we're at minus 0.37, 1, so that's smaller increments now, so we're back to the smaller increments. But in order to achieve this, we have to either take up this much space by making the track that tall, or take up that much space by, we can put the track back to a normal size and then expand the curves, which takes up actually even more space, so I probably wouldn't recommend that. But I just wish that it was more fluid just here in a regular size timeline block. And keeping with those volume adjustment issues that I was just talking about, I also have one where you can't see the adjustment that you're doing on the line here as you adjust it. So say that I click here and I move it up and down. You see how it shows the dB scale change as we move up and down? That's what I want. But if we place a keyframe first, like the one I just did there with the Alt click, and then I drag this up and down, I can no longer see how it's being adjusted. And to me, this doesn't really make any sense. So this happens all the time in my workflow where I'll, put a point here and a point here, like I said, and maybe I'll tailor that one down. I can see it being adjusted. And then now maybe I want to change the volume of the remainder of the clip. I can't see the volume. So I either have to guess and then look up here in the volume panel, or, move to the keyframe and type it in manually. But it's more tedious to do it that way. I don't really understand why it disappears. It's got to be a bug because it shows up when this isn't here. If I press delete, you can see that it's still not there. And if I delete the first one, well, now it comes back. So that has to be a bug. Anyway, I hope that they fix that. Now, another thing that bugs me when dealing with a clip with video and audio like this together, let's zoom out quite a bit, is let's say that we got rid of this whole remainder here, but then later on we decided that we wanted to extend it. Well, if we grab this here and we pull it out, you see how it extends both the audio and the video at the same time, and that's because they're linked. But what happens if we're trying to extend that with another file or with another clip? So let's say we bring this one in here. Now this is another video file altogether, and let's say that it's also at the same point here, and then we want to extend them all. Well, we can't just select them all and extend them because it only extends the one that you selected when you did that. And even if you select them all and try and find some sort of midpoint here to extend, it doesn't seem to really matter what you click by, it just extends whichever. So if you're somebody like me that came from Premiere Pro, then you might find this confusing or annoying, but there is a way to do it, but it's kind of finicky. So you have to select this tool over here, which is the Trim Edit tool, and the cursor looks like this, and then you select like that with this tool used. If you do it with the regular cursor tool and you select, and then you switch over to the Trim Edit tool, it's not going to work for you. So you have to actually select it with the Trim Edit tool, and then you come in here and you look for the one that has the 2 brackets and the 2 arrows, which you can see. This will not work, this won't work. It has to be the 2 brackets and the 2 arrows, and then when you click, you'll see all 4 tracks selected, and then you can expand them. What I don't understand though is that sometimes when you click, it selects all 4, and if I let go and then say move down a little bit to the audio track and click, it selects all 4, move around. Oh, now it only selected 2. And I find even though the cursor stayed the same symbol, sometimes it selects 2, and sometimes it selects 4. So that's 4, 4, and that time I misclicked. 2. See, it was 2 that time. I don't really understand what's going on here. Maybe there's you have to be right on the middle, or you have to be in this area. I don't really know what it is. So if you guys know, let me know in the comments. But yeah, with the trim tool, you can select all 4. 70% of the time, I find, and 30% of the time it still only selects 2. Anyway, then you can stretch them out that way, and then you can switch back to your other cursor tool and move on from there. But it doesn't work as easily as in Premiere Pro, where you just select things and expand them. Okay, the next issue is one that I actually have a solution for that I want to share with you, but it's one that I've read a lot about on the forums, and it has to do with waveforms in Resolve. There's a lot of issues with waveforms in Resolve. The one that bugs me the most is the fact that they tend to disappear on me from time to time. So I'll be opening up a project that I was working on before, and maybe I'll bring in a new audio track, and the audio track just won't have any waveforms. It'll look like this, just completely blank. And it doesn't really matter what you do. You can go through and change all the waveform settings. Often that's what people recommend, but the idea is that I had waveforms, then I brought a new track, and they're gone. It's not that anything in my timeline changed or the way that I'm displaying waveforms changed. So if you ever experience anything like this, I have a solution for you. It's not great, but it does work. What you have to do is close down Resolve and then navigate to this folder here, which is located in wherever your main Resolve sort of gallery and cache folder is, which is usually where you tell it right at the beginning. And if you navigate through there, you'll see the cache clip folder, and inside the cache clip folder is a folder called audio. If you just delete the folder audio, it will sort of remove any sort of cached waveforms, and then the next time that you launch Resolve, it will sort of regenerate the waveforms, and it seems to work okay. And this might last you for a little while, or a week, or a couple projects, and then if you get jammed up again with your waveforms not appearing, close Resolve, go back to that location, delete the audio folder, and then open it back up, and your waveforms should be regenerated again. So again, this is for an issue where the waveforms do not appear no matter what you do, although oddly, there is a way to get them to show up, but it's only when you zoom in to the full maximum zoom, then they show up, and if you go back one notch, they're gone. That was the way that I was experiencing it, and I found that this was a common thing based on the forums and some people that I talked to, but deleting the audio folder and relaunching the program seems to fix this. Another issue I have with things sort of not applying correctly has to do with color grades. I find that periodically, it seems really intermittent. I don't know exactly what causes it, but it just shows up every once in a while. I'll be grading a clip and it just won't take. Any of the adjustments that I make just don't seem to apply, where just a moment before, I might have graded the clip before it and it worked fine. Now I move on to the next one and it doesn't. Now there is a fix that I found for this as well. I don't really know what causes it, but if you ever find yourself in this situation, if you go back to the edit page and select the clip in question, and then navigate to the top menu and choose playback, and then choose delete render cache, and then you can just choose selected clip because you don't need to delete your entire render cache. You delete the cache for that selected clip, click away, and then click back on the clip, and then your grade will magically appear. So there's obviously something where it gets jammed up in the cache where it's not updating the current cache of the clip with the new grades that you applied, it's just retaining the old one. But if you delete the current render cache for that selected clip, and then just sort of refresh your viewer, it will now show the grades. So that's a workaround for that, but I'm not really sure what causes it, and consider this a bit of a bug report. And speaking of the render cache, which for the most part I think is pretty great, I like the way that you can customize it, and I like how it sort of performs in the background. I do find, however, that it's a bit too easy to make it have to re-render everything. Let me show you an example here. So if we keep the same weird nonsense clip that we're working with here, but let's actually make it a little bit smaller. So let's put a cut here, and we'll get rid of this. And then, yeah, we have two clips here, and that's fine. So let's say that we wanted to put a transition on these two areas right here. So let's go over to Effects, and we'll choose, sure, Blur Dissolve. So we'll put that on here. I also don't like that, by the way. Did you see what just happened? I dragged this thing down, so this was viewed like this. If I drag this down and I kind of hover over it, you see how it shifts up so that you can shift up that way? I wish it didn't do that. I wish, like, you'd have to hold it there for a second or be more intentful with it, because I literally only just dragged it right down. Watch it one more time. I'm going to go from here directly to here. But if I just sort of like slowly do it like that, it already shifts. Like, I don't like that. That's annoying. I constantly have to keep doing this. Anyway, so we put a blur dissolve here and we expand it. Now you can see up here, it's creating a render cache for that. So that's based on my settings. I have my settings that transitions and stuff like that do, cache them, which works well when you do that. So it rendered it very quickly, and now it's in the cache. And if I were to play through that, you know, it does the transition smoothly, and I'm not dropping any frames, so that's great. Render cache worked well. And now for this larger chunk here, let's say that we wanted to, by the way, does anybody know a fix for that? You see how I just pressed to insert a cut and it selected the tracks before? Is there any way that when I do that, let me undo that and press it again. So now I have it set to X. By the way, do you see how this thing just turned red? That's going to be what we're talking about, is how easy it is to make it have to re-render. But you saw just me pressing cut and undo made it have to re-render it. But anyway, if I were to place the cut here, is there any way to have it where it automatically selects this? Because that would be faster for, you know, just blasting through the timeline. It's like X delete, X delete. But anyway, if anybody knows how to do that, where when I insert a cut with a shortcut that it selects the tracks afterwards, let me know in the comments. I'd appreciate that. Anyway, so let's get rid of that stuff. So now let's say that we wanted to put a blend mode on this. Let's put it on, I don't know, pin light. Okay, that looks wild. All right, so it should, yeah, there we go. It should have to create a render cache for that as well, because it has a, you know, composite mode. So it's going to go through and it's going to render that. Now you'll see that this transition is already in the cache, and this one's almost finished. Now, if I do anything, and I mean pretty much anything that involves these clips in any way, it has to re-render it, and I don't really understand that. So for instance, let's say that I wanted to shorten this a little bit. So I pull it in a little bit. There's no reason why I should have to re-render this, but it does. I don't really understand why it has to recache it. I didn't actually change the frames here during the transition, and it goes the same way. Actually, even if we undo something, so now it has to recache that because I pulled it back out. But if I press undo, it also has to recache it. You think undo would be able to just go back to where it was cached before. And it gets worse. If we select everything in its entirety, so we're not actually changing the way that the frames are composited, and say that we just shift it down the timeline, it has to re-render the entire thing now, which to me seems wasteful. So say that you had your entire timeline rendered out and it was great, and then at the very beginning you decided there's a bit too much silence at the beginning of my video or something, and you trim off like 1 second from the beginning of the video, the entire timeline will have to be recached. Obviously in that case I would suggest that you just set your in and out points and deliver from there, but because of the fact that it has to recache, but that to me seems silly. And like I said, I can prove it, because if I just take this and just shift it over just a couple frames, it has to recache everything. So that's a big problem. It should be able to, you know, smartly figure out when the actual frames themselves haven't really changed, they just shifted time, and it shouldn't need to recache, in my opinion, just because time moves around. It should only need to recache if I were to say go in here and change from pin light to linear light. Well then sure, it has to recache because I'm changing the way that the effect is being applied. Okay, so my last issue that I want to share with you could potentially just be something that I'm doing wrong, but it's been bugging me. I often insert images that I've taken, for a test or whatever. I bring them in as RAWs, put them through Lightroom, and then when they get exported, they're just sort of sequential JPEGs. I'll give you an example here because I have some to bring in. So I'm going to go to the media thing here, and I'm going to navigate to my desktop, and I have a folder here called Photo Test. And you can see right here that it's showing up as one file, and this is something I want to import into the project. But if we look at that actual folder, we can see that there's two images in here. There's 0001 and 0002. These are two images I just took for this purpose. So yeah, there's two images in there, but when we go back into Resolve, it's just showing them both. You can see right here that it says 0001-0002, and when I go to import them, so now they're in my tests folder, and I go to edit, say I wanted to insert them, I just have them as like one file here. And I also don't like how thin they are. Now, the fix for this is tedious and not something that you think you would have to do. If I make a copy of these files and I just rename them to something completely different from each other, so I'm just going to type in a bunch of gibberish here. Now, they don't have any kind of sequential name anymore. And if I go back to import the media, well, now you can see that they're two separate images, and I can bring them in, and if I drag one of them onto the timeline, they occupy the normal size, like they're, a few seconds long or whatever, and I can work with them. I can make them shorter or longer, but I couldn't do that with this one. And so it means that anytime I want to take something out of Lightroom and then immediately put it in Resolve, I have to go through and make unique names for them, which they are unique names. They have a different number, but they can't seem to be in a sequence, or Resolve bundles them together like this. Hey, so this is Editor Gerald here, working on the very video that you're watching, and I thought of two more things that are somewhat related to that images thing that we just talked about that also bug me that I didn't really think about until I actually started editing this video. So if we go back to the very beginning of the video here, right after the intro, when the greeting comes in, the fan requested greeting, something I've noticed that happens that I don't fully understand is when I bring one of those in, the weird black screen. So let me show you. Let's just go over here. Let's say that I wanted to put the greeting right over this thing. So this is it right here. And if I drag this in, this is a PNG. And as you can see, it brings these black bars on it. If I open up the transform, this is the only file. It's a PNG file that's this big. It's cropped to this exact size. But when I bring it in, it fills the frame horizontally and then adds these black bars. And at first, this really threw me off when I first came from Premiere, because Premiere always just sort of puts it on like a layer. But this was very strange. Now, as soon as you transform it, then the image comes in from behind it again, and now you're seeing the transparency. And if we make it bigger again, as soon as we hit that edge, it turns the background black again, as soon as the zoom is around, 1 times. And I really don't understand what this is or why this does this. So if anybody knows or a way to turn this off, please let me know. Otherwise, I wish the Resolve would just get rid of this, because I don't really see the point in it at all. So then you transform it, and then you put it where you want it, and then now you get the transparency. And it doesn't matter what you do from down here, but it's just whenever you reset it, then the screen goes black. Really, really strange. The other issue that I have is with what's going on over here in the inspector. So you see if we click on this, and I just reset that zoom over there. Sometimes I wish that you could copy these settings as almost like a preset. Now you can copy them when you're within this project. So if I wanted to take the settings from this one and apply to that one, I could copy this here, and then I could paste it on this one and choose, zoom, and I could choose position and click apply, and it'll move it to the exact same place. And I was using shortcuts, but that's the same thing as you want to copy and then paste attributes, copy and paste attributes, and that will get you that screen. And that works okay. But sometimes it doesn't work for that because I don't already have the file, and I'll show you what I have to do. So at the end of a video, usually, you guys are probably familiar with this, normally I would take, let me make a copy of this one. Normally I would put sort of an outro on my video, and I have this thing here, I have a end screen, so I'd put an end screen in, and then I would lay my video track over top of the end screen, and then what I need to do is I need to resize my video to fit into this end screen box. And that's normally how it is, but I don't want to do this every single time since I know exactly where it goes. Now with Premiere, there would be presets that you could use for motion. So like the transform controls would be a preset, and I could just like drag them down and they were here. I don't know how to do that in Resolve. It's not like you can, right click here or save a preset in any way and there's no way to like save the inspector's options as presets. You can just copy attributes. So my way for working around this is I made this little block here as kind of a placeholder, and I put it in my project so I can pull it up whenever I want, and I can copy the settings from this and then paste the attributes and then click apply, and then it sets it perfectly for me. So you can see if I was like this and then I pasted the attributes on here, it resizes it. But this object that I'm saving over here, I call it end camera placement, this is where I'm getting the attributes from. And I also don't think I can copy the attributes from my media pool. If I go over here, there's no copy option. And I've tried pressing like Control C and then pasting them down here, and it doesn't work. So I wish that there was like a preset for things that are going on in the inspector, because say for instance that you were using some audio effects, like you went and do effects here and Fairlight, and you had, I don't know, a flanger, sure. So you put the flanger on your audio, and then you set it, you turn all the knobs, and you put it exactly how you wanted. You can set a preset in here by hitting plus and assigning a preset, but you can't set a preset in, if we click on this thing and we view the inspector, you've got your pitch, your equalizer, and then we've got the flanger. I wish that there was a way to make a preset for all of these things, because maybe the pan was a certain thing and the pitch was like this, and we'd turn on an equalizer and we'd set that. I wish that there was just a way to sort of like copy all these inspector settings and save them as a preset, so that in another video, in another project, I could just, it would be over here and it would say, you know, Gerald's September 17th audio settings, and I would just drag it down and then boom, and they would all be applied again. Those are two things that have been bugging me that I think are really slowing down my workflow. All right, back to the regular flow of the video. Okay, so that's it for the issues that I've documented so far. There was another one that you guys might remember if you follow me on social media, where I said that all of my exports were having random popping, clicking sounds in the audio that wasn't there when you play it through. So you'd play through the timeline, even play it through in Fairlight, and it would sound fine, and then you export it, and at random points you would hear like a weird garble of the audio. And if you re-exported it again, it wouldn't be in the same place. The garble would be somewhere else, and you couldn't hear it in the actual audio track. That just seemed to be an issue with the Resolve 16 Beta 2, because I tried everything and I couldn't get it to stop, no matter how I changed my export settings or what I did with my audio, anything, and it caused the same problem. But as soon as I rolled back to Resolve 16, the non-beta version, Studio 16, the issue was gone. So if you're having an issue like that, roll back, it's a 16 beta 2 problem. Okay, so there's one more issue that isn't my issue, but when we were talking about this video idea on the stream, there was a person that requested that we talk about a specific issue. Now, I don't fully understand this, but I'm going to do my best to read it, demonstrate it, and then perhaps if Blackmagic's watching this, they can look at it. So the comment said, Resolve 16 big bug. If you select all clips and press D and undo, instead of bringing back only the clips that were enabled, it enabled the clips making you lose hours of work. Please make it public. So I was able to recreate this, and I know what this person's talking about. I'm not sure why it would lose hours of work though, but perhaps their usage case is something different than what I do. But I will show you. So let's put in a couple clips here. So there's one, another one, and another one. And let's go like this, and we'll chop it up a few more times as well. Now you can see that we have a few clips here. Now let's say that we disable this one and this one. So this is the way that our timeline looked already. We had 2 disabled clips and 3 ones that weren't. Now what they're saying is that if you select all the clips and press D, it disables them all. And then if you undo, it brings them all back. It didn't return it to the state where 2 and 4 were disabled and 1, 3, 5 weren't. It just re-enabled them all. And I'm pretty sure that's what the commenter was describing, but they said this makes them lose hours of work. I'm not really sure how, because can't you just go back and disable it? Now maybe if they had a really complicated timeline, that they had all kinds of things that were disabled and, you know, not disabled, and it just turned them all enabled, that could be annoying. Anyway, so hopefully that will help, and that's pretty much everything. Despite my complaints that I made in this video, I do want to make it clear, like I said in the beginning, that I actually really do enjoy this program, and I would say I might like it more than Premiere, save for those few issues. I really like how the hardware is being better utilized by the software, in this case versus Premiere. I like the color panel, and I really like how quickly Blackmagic is developing and evolving their software. I really appreciate that kind of thing. If I didn't like this software at all, I wouldn't have even made this video. I would have just written it off and thought, the software is junk. So the fact that I'm even making this video with these really, you know, somewhat minute complaints shows how much I like the software and how much promise I think it has, where it's at the stage where we just need to fix these tiny little things and we're good to go. So hopefully this video was helpful for people who are transitioning from Premiere Pro to Resolve, because maybe you would encounter a similar kind of confusion that I would when you go to do certain actions in Premiere Pro that might seem natural and you can't do them in Resolve. Hopefully this will help you get over some of those hurdles. And for the ones that I'm still having trouble with, please let me know in the comments if you have any solutions to them. And then hopefully me and other people like me will be able to read them and make our edits a lot faster and smoother. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you found this video entertaining, or at least helpful, and if you did, make sure you leave it the old thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. But if you did not find this video helpful or entertaining, well, move on. What are you, 6? The dislike button's for crybabies. Alright, I'm done.